Can Auburn complete another sweep, this time from the Ole Miss Rebels? Let's talk about it right here inside the town.
The Auburn Express. You are now listening to The War Report, Longtown Podcast. With your boy Ike Jones.
Inside Lobtown, part of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report here, talking a little Auburn versus Ole Miss set to go down this time at Neville Arena. Auburn got the win last time versus Ole Miss and needs to try to figure out how to sweep them this time. 92 points scored by the Auburn Tigers. The bad thing, they gave up 82. So Auburn's got to figure out a way to be able to play a little bit better defense in this one so that the margin's a little bit bigger. If you're in here for the first time, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Go ahead and share the content with somebody. But let's get in here and talk about this game. When we talk about the last game and what happened in that one, you saw a good Auburn shooting performance in that game. Auburn was able to, in that game, pulling up the notes here, knock down 14, count them, 14 three-pointers in that game, right? So they were shooting the ball really well. Auburn has not shot the ball that well since then. I mean, they had 12 in the Alabama game, but 14 of 28 in that game. A remarkable shooting performance. And, if Ole Miss is walking away from that game and you're saying, can Auburn shoot that good again? We lost this game by 10. They hit 14 threes. Are they going to be able to shoot that well again? And Auburn has not shot the ball well in conference play inside of Neville Arena as well as they've shot it on the road. And so Ole Miss has to be feeling good about themselves, about giving Auburn a couple of those looks that they got in that game, and they're not going to drop. And can they reproduce what they did from an offensive standpoint and put themselves in position to steal one on the road? Also, and this is something I don't know that Ole Miss can do much better because they haven't been great at it all season, and that is Auburn dominated the glass in this game. So, if Auburn is going to have a worse shooting performance, can they duplicate their ability to dominate the glass, particularly on the offensive glass, to be able to give themselves some second chance opportunities? And a lot of those three-point makes were coming off of second chance opportunities versus Ole Miss. So they're going to be able to do that again in this game because they do have a decided size advantage for the most part with their front line. So Auburn going to be looking to try to capitalize on those things in this one. As far as the SEC standings are concerned, Auburn is in a comfortable position out in front, but this isn't a game that you want to drop, particularly at home. You've only got one more home game after this. That's the Bama game at the end of the season. If you got two tough road tests that you have coming up after this Ole Miss game versus Kentucky and Texas A&M, both difficult places to get wins. So Auburn needs to be able to keep the lead and keep the rest of the league at arm's distance by going ahead and securing another win in conference play versus Ole Miss in this one. Ole Miss fighting to really try to improve their seeding. They're already a team inside of the top 25. They are pretty much going to be guaranteed to get into the postseason there. But they need to do some improvements on what line they're going to be on as far as the tournament is concerned, both in the SEC and the NCAA tournament. So that's what they're fighting for. They're really not in a place where they can get to the SEC title as far as the regular season is concerned. It's really about seeding for them at this point in time. But getting a win on the road versus Auburn, another win versus a tough SEC opponent on the road would do a lot towards building their resume towards the end of the year. Of course, they already beat Bama on the road. So they have had the opportunity to do this once before in the state of Alabama to an SEC opponent. So we will see what they are able to do. As far as their road contests so far this season, they are 4-3. So they'd be looking to get to 500 on the road there. Their wins on the road were against Arkansas, the aforementioned Alabama, LSU, and South Carolina. The Bama game was really the only one that was a blowout. Arkansas, they beat them handily. I mean, it was a 7-point win. It wasn't anything like blowout like it was against Bama, with it, which they won. Well, they won by 10 points. I won't say it's a blowout, but double digits there. But the other ones were close game. One by 2 against LSU, and then one by 4 against South Carolina on the road. They lost to Missouri and Mississippi State. That Mississippi State was an overtime loss, and then Missouri they lost by 8 points on the road. So they've been tested out here on the road, and then most recently, excuse me, Vanderbilt by 5 points. So they've been able to on the road keep most of these games within single digits. Again, they only lost to Auburn by 10 in their home building. They have to be coming into this game feeling pretty good, despite the fact that they are going through a pretty tough streak right now where they've lost a couple in a row and haven't really looked good offensively. And that's really been the issue for this Ole Miss team on the road is, as much as Auburn has struggled to shoot the three, they've still scored a lot of points at home. Despite how the three-point shooting has looked, Auburn has scored a lot of points at home. Ole Miss has not scored a lot of points on the road. Even in that game against Bama that they won by 10 points, they scored 74 points, right? So that's a decent amount of points, but it's not going to overwhelm a team like Auburn that's scoring in the 80s consistently. So Ole Miss going to have to find a way to play a little bit better defense and keep Auburn particularly off of the glass. And then figure out a way to keep that Neville crowd at bay and not let the momentum of what the home team can generate in their home building sweep them off of that floor there. So they're going to have to make some 3-point shots. They did not hit the three particularly well in that game versus Auburn. We go back and look at that game statistically. Ole Miss versus Auburn. Let me pull that up here. Ole Miss was able to hit 6 of 19 threes. So really, they didn't get a lot of 3-point shots off. They shot a decent percentage. They just don't shoot a lot of threes in that game. And they're probably going to have to do that a little bit better. They scored really well in the paint. They had a lot of layups, and they actually outscored Auburn in the paint in that game. But I think they're going to have to shoot the three ball a little bit better. Matthew Morrell is a guy who he and Brakefield have been guys that have been traditionally good scorers versus Auburn, particularly at the 3-point line. They're going to need them to have good shooting performances in order to be able to steal this game on the road. Now, the keys for Auburn in this game, and Bruce Pearl talked about this in his pregame press conference, which is live on the channel right now if you want to go and watch that, is they've got to figure out how to stop sending teams to the free throw line. Ole Miss in this last game shot an ungodly amount of free throws. Let me just take a look at that. I think they shot 32 free throws in that first game versus Auburn. You can't send a team to the free throw line that many times and really expect to come out with a win. Auburn did it, but they can't duplicate that, especially again if you're not going to be scoring at a high clip. You can't keep putting yourself in foul trouble and giving the team free opportunities at the line. Ole Miss is a good free throw shooting team on the road this season. They are shooting over 70%. So, they're up at 73% on the road in SEC play this season. So they're going to get to the line at a pretty decent rate. They're not the highest rated free throw, as far as teams getting to the free throw line, but they got to the line a lot versus Auburn in that first game, and they shoot a good percentage from free throw. They didn't shoot great in that Auburn game the first time, but that's something that you expect them to do a little bit better, especially again, since that's been something that they've done well. So if Auburn can figure out how to play solid defense without sending Ole Miss to the line, you're in a much better position in this game to be able to get a blowout victory as opposed to, 10 points, good victory, solid win, but they haven't had one of those blowout wins that fans have been looking for. I don't know that this Ole Miss game is going to be one of those that you're going to expect to do that, but if you want to, the recipe is not sending them to a line 30 plus times in the game. The other portion of this, and we talked about this in the first matchup, is Ole Miss turns teams over. They have the best turnover differential in the conference. They turn the ball over at the fewest amount of times, and they take the ball away the most amount of times. They have the best differential at that. Auburn needs to take care of the basketball to stop Ole Miss from being able to get into transition. What Auburn did a good job of in the first game is they didn't turn the ball over in an inordinate amount of times in the second half in particular, which kept Ole Miss from running, because when Ole Miss was keeping the game close, particularly in the first half, they were out and they were in transition. Auburn was making a lot of silly turnovers, and Ole Miss was able to get out and run before Auburn was in their set defense. Auburn needs to take care of the basketball in this one if they want to put themselves in a position to be able to win this game. They can't get into the situation where they're making lazy passes or where they are being loose with the basketball. Ole Miss functions off of that. Their defense, which Coach Bruce Pearl talked about so eloquently, is a switching defense, right? They're going to play man-to-man, and they're going to switch in and out of stuff to kind of take away looks that you thought you had. You thought you had this window right here, but then they're going to jump into this passing lane. They're going to jump into this different defense and this different look Sometimes we're going to double team. Sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're going to, jump out and we're going to trap at the half court. Sometimes we're not. We're just going to constantly switch up the looks for you so that's whatever you're seeing, the picture that you're seeing, you're never really comfortable in getting into a flow offensively. And so Auburn has to be ready to adjust to those things. I didn't think that Denver Jones nor Tahad Pettiford had a particularly good game in that first game versus Ole Miss on the road. They need to have a good game. Denver's been playing better. Tahad's still in a shooting slump, but he's been doing well to impact the game in other ways, particularly assisting. But he's got to get a better game in this one. And Denver hopefully can continue his good play on the offensive end where he's been much more efficient of recent. And then the other thing, Auburn needs to find a three-point shot, right? I talked about this a little bit already, but they've got to find a way to start knocking down some of these open looks. Again, Bruce Pearl talked about this in the press conference, and he feels as if early in the games they're taking tough ones as opposed to taking the open ones and turning down some of the tough ones early so that you can get yourself into a rhythm. And if you've made a couple of the open ones, then maybe you'll start to knock down some of the more contested shots. But they're just not putting themselves in position to get the rhythm. Trusting your shot is one thing, but making sure, like understanding, okay, I'm in a slump right now. Let me figure out another way to do this. I think Miles Kelly has adapted to this pretty well during the game. He still starts out the game wanting to shoot some of those threes off of the curls and corner shots, but then when it's not working, he's done a good job of driving it and getting into the lane. I think that's something that I would like to see Tahad Pettiford do a little bit better job of, not over dribbling, not over penetrating. Let's get to the mid range and shoot that and see if we can get some knockdown. Or if you're going to get to the lane, hopefully you get some foul calls in this one because he's got one of the worst whistles that's out there, and be able to get your rhythm in that way, as well as Shad Baker-Mazara finding a way to be able to get himself going in the mid-range. And he's been a guy who has flourished in the mid-range, and he's gone away from that a little bit. You see him pick and choose some spots here and there, but finding ways to get to the mid-range shot and knocking that down effectively. And then maybe some of those step back threes will start to work themselves out for him. Same thing with Janai Broom. He hasn't taken an inordinate amount of threes in any game, but finding, opportunities early in games. Okay, maybe take the first open one. If it doesn't work, then let me just try to, from the high from the 3-point line, find a way to get closer to the rim and make the defense have to adjust to me in a better way there. So hopefully they'll be able to do that in this game. We're going to take a look at in the pregame some of the projected numbers for what these teams are supposed to be doing. But if you want to be able to look at some of those projections, you can go over to underdogfantasy.com, use code rapport, and your deposit can get up to $1,000 in bonus cash over there. If you took a look at some of the things that we did from projections from the last game, and you took some of the things that I said were possibly good projections, you can either go higher or lower on the projected number there and determine what your entry is going to be. If you're in the state of Alabama, you're playing champions, which is pool play. Otherwise, you're playing the straight up game where it's just your points. And if you get the answers right for your higher or lower projections, then you can win some cash. But if you took advantage of some of the things we talked about in the pregame, you probably would have won yourself a little something. So make sure you jump back in here pregame with me before the game to talk about some of the projections that are for this game in particular. But again, use code rapport, get you $1,000 in bonus cash, up to $1,000 in bonus cash for your first deposit. Let's get back in here and talk about this from the other side. And honestly, for Ole Miss in this game, Auburn had a tough time staying in front of Sean Padula. He made some really tough baskets. Auburn defensively really honestly did a good job on everybody except for Padula as he was getting to the lane. But the remainder of the guys for Ole Miss need to find ways really to make tough shots. They need to be a tough shot making team because this Auburn team did a good job of making everything tough for them. Brakefield got some opportunities early in the game, but it felt like, they found a way to clamp him down as the game progressed. But Matthew Morrell and Sean Padula are the tough shot makers. They need to make tough shots and put the pressure on this Auburn defense. So Auburn's got to find a way to bottle those guys up, particularly in them getting to the lane and getting to the free throw line because they're good free throw shooters. But that's going to be the recipe, I think, for Ole Miss is playing fast and through their guards. Now, they have really good guard play, but the guy I think that's going to have to figure out how to be more impactful on this game, and he did not do a great job in the first game, particularly in his shot selection, was Malik Dia. He's got to be more impactful on this game for them on the boards in order for them to really be able to put some pressure on Auburn in this one. He's got a tall task, right? He's dealing with Dylan Cardwell, Janai Broom, Chaney Johnson. but he has the size height advantage on all of those guys. So he has to play bigger in this game for them if they're going to be able to find a way to pull off the upset. Which means that Auburn needs to find a way to make sure that he's not impactful, particularly on the glass, and getting those second chance opportunities for Ole Miss. Limiting them to one shot, not sending them to the free throw line, going to be imperative for Auburn to come out with the victory in this one. Um, the other portion of this that Ole Miss is going to have to do, absolutely have to do in this game, if they want to run the kind of tempo that they typically are going to do, they're going to have to get more productivity from their bench. Auburn has the deeper team, as far as who they play 1 through really 9, and there's still guys who could get more minutes that aren't getting them. Ole Miss is really a 6 to 7, excuse me, a 7 to 8 person rotation from their team, and those last couple of guys are really just barely cracking double digits in their overall minutes per game. So they're going to have to find some productivity from their bench to be able to get this win if they're going to do that on the road. The last couple of games, they just have not done a good job of being able to score enough points. Again, when you look at the last few games, particularly on the road, they've scored 72, 72, and 72. Right. LSU, South Carolina, Vanderbilt. They won 2 and lost 1, but they only scored 72 in all 3 of those games in their last 3 road trips. I don't think 72 points is going to get it done versus Auburn. They've got to find more ways to be able to put up points, and they've got to shoot better on than they have been on the road. Right. So this is a team that is, as far as their percentages go, on the road, they're shooting 48% from 2, 35% from 3. So they got to make some 3-point shots in this game. I don't think 6 is going to get it done like it didn't get it done in the last game. They got to shoot a higher percentage and a higher volume from the 3-point line in order to be able to get into a place where they can get the win in this one. As far as I'm concerned, this is a game that Auburn should win, right? Like, I'm not sitting here confidently saying they are going to win, but it is a game that Auburn should win because the advantages are in Auburn's favor as a team that doesn't turn the ball over a lot. Ole Miss is the only team who turns it over less. And as a team who does a good job on the glass, those are kryptonites for Ole Miss. If you take care of the basketball and you're able to get second chance opportunities, then you're going to be able to help yourself against Ole Miss because they feed off of turnovers. Protect the ball. Do a better job against Sean Padula, particularly in him getting to the lane, and then do a good job of getting yourself some additional opportunities on the glass. You come out with the win if you're Auburn. But I want to hear from you all, as always. What are your thoughts on this game? What are the things that you expect to see in this game versus Ole Miss? What are your predictions for final score? All of those things, drop those right down there in the comment section. If you haven't already to this point, please like the video before you get out of here. Subscribe to the channel. Share the content with somebody. We'll be back at you with the pregame and watch party for the game coming up versus Ole Miss. But until then, and as always, War Eagle.